Saturday morning. Siew Lin, 41, Senior Project Manager, Bishan. Her husband got a job offer in Melbourne. Permanent role, good salary. They have been talking about it for 3 months. Yesterday, she sat down and typed one question into Google. What happens to my CPF if we leave Singapore forever? 4 hours later, she closed her laptop, more confused than when she started. Some articles said she loses everything. Some said she keeps it. Some said she gets it all back. None of them agreed. Today we answer that question properly, not in theory, with the exact rules from CPF Board and ICA as at July 2026. Every scenario, every number, every trap that catches people who did not check before they left. Because the answer is not one answer. It is 5 different answers depending on who you are. And the difference between them can be hundreds of thousands of Singapore dollars. Start with the most important fact nobody puts first. There are 2 completely different sets of rules depending on whether you are a Singapore citizen or a permanent resident. If you are a Singapore citizen, leaving Singapore permanently does not trigger CPF access. Your citizenship stays. Your CPF stays. The standard rules apply. You can withdraw from age 55. CPF Life begins from age 65. Moving to Melbourne, London, or New York changes nothing about those rules. If you are a permanent resident, leaving permanently and formally renouncing your PR status allows you to withdraw your entire CPF balance, every dollar across all 4 accounts, at any age. No age requirement, no retirement sum threshold, all of it. This is the single biggest rule most people do not know before they start planning. Siew Lin is a Singapore citizen. Her colleague Rachel, who joined the same company 12 years ago on an employment pass and converted to PR 4 years later, Rachel has a completely different decision in front of her. They are both leaving for Melbourne. Their CPF outcomes are not even close to the same. Start with Rachel. She is 38. PR since 2022. CPF balance after 4 years of contributions. Around 92,000 Singapore dollars across her ordinary, special, and MediSave accounts. She decides to leave permanently and renounce her PR. Here is the exact process. Step 1. Apply to ICA to formally cancel PR status. ICA confirms the cancellation and issues a verification letter. Step 2. Wait 6 months after leaving Singapore. This waiting period is mandatory. CPF Board requires it to confirm genuine permanent departure, not a temporary absence. Step 3. Submit withdrawal application to CPF Board with the ICA verification letter, proof of overseas address, and bank account details. Processing time from application, approximately 12 weeks. CPF Board conducts thorough checks before dispersing. The full balance, OA, SA, MediSave, and RA if she is over 55, transfers to her nominated bank account, either gyro to her Singapore account or telegraphic transfer to her Australian bank directly. All bank charges and currency conversion costs are borne by the recipient. CPF pays in Singapore dollars. If her Australian bank does not accept SGD, CPF converts to USD first, with exchange rate differences landing on her. Tax in Singapore on the withdrawal, 0. No withholding tax. The lump sum leaves Singapore completely tax-free. Tax in Australia. This is where Rachel needs a tax advisor before she leaves. The Australian Tax Office does not automatically treat a CPF lump sum as tax-free foreign income. Depending on her residency status in Australia and the timing of her move, the payout could be classified as assessable income. The same applies in the UK, the US, and most other destinations. The Singapore side is clean. The destination side is not guaranteed. Rachel receives $92,000. She closes her CPF account, and she needs to understand one thing about that decision. It is permanent. If she returns to Singapore and wants PR or citizenship again, she must repay the full amount she withdrew, including all interest it would have earned from the date of withdrawal to the date of repayment. Not a soft guideline. A condition of ICA. The CPF she withdrew and spent on a Melbourne apartment is money she would need to find again from somewhere else. Now Siew Lin, Singapore citizen. Same Melbourne job, same departure date. She cannot withdraw her CPF because she is leaving. Citizenship does not come with an exit clause for CPF. She boards the plane and her CPF stays exactly where it is. OA still earning 2.5% per year, SA and MediSave earning 4%. This sounds like a problem. It is actually an advantage she has not thought about yet. While Rachel spends the next 12 weeks processing a withdrawal, Siew Lin's CPF continues compounding at 4% on the special account, guaranteed by the Singapore government, zero risk, no management required. She checks her CPF app at the boarding gate. Total balance 184,000 Singapore dollars. She leaves. The balance keeps growing, every year, without her doing anything. She turns 55 in 14 years. At that point, she can withdraw from her ordinary account at least 5,000 Singapore dollars or any amount above the full retirement sum from the CPF portal online using SingPass from her Melbourne address. The money arrives in her Australian bank account by telegraphic transfer. She pays the transfer fees. She turns 65. CPF Life begins paying her automatically, monthly, for life, straight to her overseas account. If her RA has reached the full retirement sum of 220,400 Singapore dollars, she receives approximately 1,780 Singapore dollars per month, every month, for as long as she lives, regardless of where on earth she is. This is one of the few genuine advantages of Singapore citizenship that functions across borders. But there are 4 things Siew Lin loses the moment she boards that plane, and most people only discover them after the fact. The first, MediShield Life. Her coverage does not travel. The moment she is no longer resident in Singapore, MediShield Life becomes practically unusable. It covers hospitalization at Singapore public hospitals. Melbourne hospitals are not on the list. She is paying premiums from MediSave on insurance that protects her only in a country she no longer lives in. The second, CareShield Life. Same issue. The severe disability payout of 689 Singapore dollars per month in 2026 is triggered under Singapore's framework and paid in Singapore. A care home in Melbourne costs in Australian dollars and accepts Australian insurance, not CareShield Life. The third, all cost of living support. The Budget 2026 COL special payment, USave rebates, CDC vouchers, GST vouchers. Every government disbursement is means tested against residency in Singapore. Siew Lin is explicitly excluded. The program description on govbenefits.gov.sg states it plainly. Overseas residents are not eligible. The fourth, MediSave is frozen for overseas use. The balance sits there earning 4%, but it cannot be used for treatment at a Melbourne hospital. Dental, physio, specialist visits in Australia, all out of pocket in Australian dollars. MediSave only pays for approved treatments at MOH-approved institutions in Singapore. The insurance premiums keep leaving MediSave every year. MediShield Life, around $1,400 to $3,800 depending on age, auto-debited annually. CareShield Life premiums, around $206 to $253 annually. She is paying for coverage she cannot use, from a balance she cannot touch for years. Now the property question. Because for most Singaporeans, the HDB flat is not separate from the CPF. It is the same money in a different form. Siew Lin and her husband own a 4-room BTO in Bishan. They collected keys in 2022. Their minimum occupation period ends in 2027, 5 years from key collection. They are leaving in 2026. They cannot sell, not legally. Selling before MOP expires is a criminal matter under the Housing and Development Act, fine of up to 50,000 Singapore dollars. Compulsory acquisition of the flat at below market value. HDB conducts enforcement, including surprise visits and cross-referencing property and utility records. There is no grace period for emigration. Their options: rent out spare bedrooms, permitted after 3 years of occupation, which they have completed. Rent the whole flat, not permitted until MOP expires. Leave it empty, possible, but HDB checks occupancy and may raise questions. They wait until 2027, MOP expires, they sell. The resale proceeds are used to pay outstanding HDB loan balance, then CPF principal they withdrew for the flat, then accrued interest on that CPF at 2.5% per annum compounded daily from the day it was withdrawn. Every additional year of holding adds approximately 7,500 Singapore dollars in accrued interest on each 100,000 withdrawn. This number grows silently, automatically, every single day. Whatever remains after those deductions, cash in their hands. The CPF refund goes back into Siew Lin's OA. It does not go overseas with her. It sits in CPF, earning 2.5%, waiting until she is 55. Here is the number that reframes the HDB question for everyone planning to leave. The average HDB resale price in Pongal in 2026, around 550,000 Singapore dollars. Median resale across Singapore, around 600,000. In mature estates like Bishan and Queenstown, 800,000 to over 1 million. But what arrives as actual cash after the sale depends entirely on how much CPF was used and for how long. Take a couple who withdrew 300,000 from CPF for their BTO and have been paying mortgage installments from CPF for 7 years. At 2.5% compounded daily on 300,000 over 7 years, the accrued interest component alone is approximately 58,500 Singapore dollars. Total refund to CPF, 358,500. On a flat that sold for 550,000, after loan repayment of 100,000, after CPF refund of 358,500, cash in hand, around 91,500, before legal fees and agent commissions. This is not a problem unique to people leaving Singapore. But for people who are leaving and hoped the flat proceeds would fund their new life abroad, the number is often significantly lower than expected. The CPF portion goes back into the account, not into the moving budget. Back to Rachel. She withdrew all her CPF and moved to Melbourne. 3 years later, she is earning well in Australia, building superannuation, paying into the Australian retirement system. Her Singapore chapter is financially closed. But she is 38. She will not retire for another 27 years. Over those 27 years, 92,000 Singapore dollars invested at 4% per year would have grown to approximately 270,000. That is the compounding she gave up by withdrawing early. This is not an argument against withdrawing. For a PR who is genuinely leaving forever, getting 92,000 in hand at 38 is rational, especially if the Australian retirement system will build her a better foundation over the next 3 decades. Australian superannuation, when consistently contributed to for 27 years, can be a serious retirement vehicle. But it is a number she should have run before making the decision in a weekend, not after landing in Melbourne. Now the questions most people only think about after they have already left. What happens to CPF nominations when you leave? If Siew Lin dies in Melbourne, her CPF does not automatically reach her family. CPF savings do not form part of the estate and are not covered by a will. They go to whoever she nominated, directly, in cash, bypassing probate. If she made a nomination, CPF Board contacts nominees within 10 working days after being informed of the death. Nominees typically receive payout within 4 to 6 weeks. If she made no nomination, the balance goes to the Public Trustee's office for distribution under intestacy law. This takes 3 to 12 months. The Public Trustee charges administrative fees. Families of unnominated members can apply for up to 6,000 Singapore dollars for documented funeral expenses. One more rule most people never see. Marriage automatically revokes a CPF nomination. If Siew Lin made a nomination before her wedding and never updated it afterward, the nomination is void. Her husband would need to go through the Public Trustee, not receive the money directly. Updating a CPF nomination takes 15 minutes online via SingPass. It costs nothing. Most people in Singapore have never done it. Now the decision framework. Because the real question is not just what happens, it is what you should do before you go. If you are a Singapore citizen leaving permanently, check your CPF nominations now, not tomorrow. If your family structure has changed since you last made one, update it today. Calculate the MediSave drain. How much leaves your MediSave every year for MediShield Life and CareShield Life premiums you can no longer use? At $1,400 to $3,800 per year for MediShield Life alone, over 10 years in Melbourne, that is 14,000 to 38,000 Singapore dollars in premiums paid on insurance that covers nothing where you live. Consider whether to apply for MediShield Life premium deferral or rebate for overseas residents. The CPF Board has provisions for this, but they are not automatic. You have to apply. Build a medical buffer in cash. MediSave cannot pay for treatment abroad. Australian private health insurance, UK private cover, US health insurance, these are cash expenses that MediSave cannot touch. Do not assume CPF Life will fund overseas retirement on its own. 1,780 Singapore dollars per month converts to roughly £1,000 sterling or 1,300 Australian dollars in 2026. In Melbourne, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment is 1,700 to 2,200 Australian dollars per month. CPF Life, received in full at 65, does not cover rent in any of the top 5 destination cities for Singaporean immigrants. If you are a permanent resident leaving permanently, the 6-month wait after leaving before you can apply is not optional and is not negotiable. Plan cash flow for that period before you go. You cannot touch CPF during the wait. Run the compounding calculation before you decide to withdraw. 92,000 in hand at 38, or 270,000 at 65. The decision depends entirely on what you do with the money in the destination country and whether you have a retirement system there building in parallel. Get tax advice in the destination country before you leave, not after the money arrives. A lump sum of 200,000 Singapore dollars landing in a UK bank account without prior planning can create a significant tax event. The Singapore side is zero tax. The UK side is not zero tax. Understand the re-entry cost. If there is any chance you return to Singapore for PR or citizenship, the full withdrawal amount plus interest must be repaid. This is not a fine, it is a reinstatement condition. If you spent the money, it has to come from somewhere else. Siew Lin closes her laptop on Saturday afternoon. She has 4 decisions to write down before the family boards the plane. Update the CPF nomination, today. Her daughter is now 12. The nomination from 7 years ago named her mother-in-law. That needs to change. Calculate the MOP gap. 1 more year. They wait, MOP expires, they sell. The cash from the sale minus the CPF refund tells them their real moving budget, not the number they assumed. Research MediShield Life premium handling for overseas residents before leaving, not after. Every dollar that leaves MediSave on unused insurance is a dollar that could have stayed compounding at 4%. And build a medical fund in Australian dollars before landing. MediSave is not coming to Melbourne with her. Whatever she needs in a hospital there, it comes from a different account. Rachel has already made her decision. She submits her ICA application on Monday. Both choices are rational. Both have real costs most people only see clearly once they have already made them. The difference between a good outcome and a painful one is not which choice you make. It is how long before you leave you start understanding what you are choosing between. Open your CPF app right now and check one thing: your CPF nomination status. The last page of the nomination section shows the date of your last update and who is listed. If the answer is never, or if your family has changed since then, 15 minutes today can save your family 6 months of public trustee processing. And if you are seriously planning to leave Singapore, permanently or for an extended period, put your situation in the comments. Citizen or PR, age, rough CPF balance, and where you are going. I will reply with the specific calculation for your scenario. Next video: how Singapore citizens abroad can still build on top of CPF Life with SSBS and SRS while living overseas, and what that actually looks like over 20 years. Subscribe so you do not miss it.